2 days ago, Amazon released Kiro, the new Agentic IDE editor. It's a new VS Code based editor that is definitely AI first and has the flow of vibe coding and the clarity of specs. It also has a cute ghost logo. I've been using this thing for 2 days straight and I am very impressed. So, what I'm going to be doing in this video is showing you how to get the most out of AI with something like Kiro. We're going to be diving into the interface of Kiro. We're going to be showing you how to use it, and we're going to be showing you some of the features involved here and what makes it unique. I have really been enjoying my time with this, and this really satisfies a lot of the things that I've been waiting for to have a real, true, built-in interface into my text editor. So since Kiro is in development preview mode, download Kiro from kiro.dev, follow along, or just watch if you want to see what makes this thing any different. Okay, so I have fired up an app inside of Kiro. This app is a SvelteKit app. It uses Convex, and it looks terrible. This is what it looks like. And I built this as a packing list for me using AI and date time, so you could plug it in and say, I'm going on this trip at this time, make me a packing list. Now, that sounds dumb. It's really easy to make a packing list, but maybe perhaps knowing like you can give it some more additional information eventually could become kind of useful, something I would actually use. But again, it looks terrible and largely hasn't been really touched outside of as an experience for me to learn Convex. So that's what application we'll be using Kiro on today. When you fire up Kiro, you're going to ask to be selecting a project, right? Pretty basic. You select your project, and then it gives you this, the Let's Build screen. And this gives you two options for a flow of working in Kiro. There's the vibe code mode where you chat first, then build, explore ideas, and iterate as you discover your needs. And this isn't necessarily my style, right? But it is a kind of more guided way of working in vibe coding. And then there's the spec-based flow. Spec-based generates really intricate specs documents, task documents, design documents, and then it uses those to build your application in a really structured, organized, and might I say, really excellent way. Now, I've heard these being described as the YOLO mode and the over-engineer mode, and I gotta say, I kind of agree with that because the spec mode certainly is not lightweight. You're gonna see what I mean in just a minute. The vibe code mode is a little too loosey-goosey for me, and I'd say this, that I have been really enjoying the spec mode, and the fact that it is, in fact, a little over-engineered is not necessarily a problem to me. But the one thing that Kiro has done better than, let's say, Cursor or some of these other options is that I haven't had to give it too much information to say, oh no, wait, you messed that up. Let's try this again. I found sometimes with Cursor, you're kind of going back and forth like, no, please take another try at this or whatever. And you end up feeling like, I just wasted a lot of time and I could have done all this by hand way faster. Now, it's my job to explore these types of things, so it's not really that much of a burden on me. But in the same regard, giving this a spec-based way of working has, in my opinion, greatly increased the accuracy of the output. So we're going to be using the spec-based mode in this. So you can select spec-based mode just from here if you'd like, and you could just simply start talking to this thing, or you could head straight to the Kiro option in the toolbar. If you're not a toolbar type of person, I'm not typically, you can get to it any type of way. You can get to it through the command palette if you want. It is called Kiro, and that has its own tab. Now, the cool thing about Kiro here, and I do want to say, I'm going to have a lot of positive words about Kiro in this video. I have no relationship with Amazon. They have not provided any financial incentive for me to talk about this. And I don't think I would accept that anyways, because like, for me, these are tools. I'm interested in trying and using these tools and giving them a fair shake. But when I like something, I tend to get really excited about it. And people tend to take that as sometimes like shilling or something like that. I assure you, I greatly understand the challenges of trying to sell someone on an Amazon-based text editor. So, I get it if you're like, Amazon, I'm out. I totally get it. But for me, this has been working really well, and I think you should at least give it a shot and check it out. So either way, if you're starting this more spec-based flow, you'll notice that there's these 4 panels here, which is build complex features with structured planning. And this is fantastic for a number of reasons, which you'll see. We'll go into it deep. Agent hooks automate repetitive tasks with smart triggers. I'll create one of these so you can see exactly how this works. Agent steering. We're going to be doing this first and foremost, but this is giving the entire application steering docs. So that way, when you get into any of these things, it's giving the AI context via the steering that it's generated. And then there's MCP servers, which actually have a UI that is right front and center instead of buried within a settings menu, those types of things, right? That's something I really appreciate from Kiro, is that a lot of the things that I was having to do manually, like write specs or even generate specs and put them in folders and have my editor know about those folders, or if you're using Claude Code, they're all very kind of not my style. I'm a UI guy, and as a UI guy, I like to see a UI where it puts those things front and center. Even got a button. So let's go into the agent steering part of this, because the steering docs is in my mind the best place to start here, because these make sense to have first so that your entire AI experience here can be guided via these steering docs. So we can click generate steering docs, no problem there, and it's going to go off and it does some great stuff. Now, one thing that you will notice about Kiro throughout this video is that it is very thorough. It takes its time. And, that could be seen as like slow to some people, but in the same regard, the things that it's creating with these steering docs, you can see it's already generating and looking through your code base. They have made my output so much more reliable that I have tended to not get upset about the time. So you can see that by now it's created the 3 steering documents for Packy Trippy, which is what I have named this app. It's a cute name. You might not like it. That's fine. It's for packing trips, Packy Trippy. So, product. Let's check this out. What it has effectively done is, you may see this and see Arcade's opening a file, blah, blah, blah. It's created this file inside of our repo. So, which is nice. Inside of a .kiro folder, you can see there is a steering folder. That means you could bring this somewhere else and use these steering docs outside of Kiro as well, if that's what you're interested in. But look, it says Packy Trippy is a travel packing list application that helps users organize and manage their trip preparations. I honestly don't know where it got that description from, but it got it. I didn't put that anywhere in the site. Somehow was able to infer that, which is great. Create and manage trips with date and locations, AI powered using ChatGPT, interactive checklist for completion tracking, trip notes, and detail management. So it's basically created this document that is, what is the app? Now, what's great about this is, yeah, you could tell the AI to change it in various ways, but it's just Markdown. So let's say something in here doesn't speak to you, or it's missing something. Hey, it's done the structure for you. It's done the initial work for you. You can modify it from here. It's gotten you a big head start. Next is the structure. Now, it's analyzed my application. It knows it's a SvelteKit app. It knows where the configuration is, the convex, everything like that. It has the front end routes folder. It understands that the trips/ID is a dynamic trip detail page. Like, hey, that's great. It can just infer that. And then it talks a little bit about the backend convex functions as well, some shared code, the database schema. It even understands that, naming conventions, architectural patterns, and AI integration. Okay, great. So general structure seems to nail. And then tech. It gets into the tech used. It uses SvelteKit 2.16 with Svelte 5. Now that's important because a lot of these things don't do very well with Svelte 5, and I haven't necessarily had that experience. That said, I'm very sure that there will be times where I am getting that experience here too. But for the most part, the fact that it knows that it's Svelte 5 can be very helpful. But this is all done automatically, right? It knows the tech, it knows the scripts, it knows the env variables, it knows my configuration, and this is all just great. So these steering docs, right? They're thrown in here, they're put into a folder, and unless you need to modify them, you can largely ignore steering docs, because the steering docs have been generated and things change. You can update them anytime. But here's where we get into the cool part, okay? Because we have this application it looks super ugly. Um, and let's even check to make sure it works. I'm going to generate my packing list for a 5-day trip, I believe, to Amsterdam. I believe it's 5 days. And by all means, if this doesn't work or if the list is bad, that's fine. I'm not really getting that deep in this project, but I want a trip that is a work trip. Either way, we click generate packing list and there's no loading or anything like that. But eventually a packing list will be returned. Okay, it's a 7-day trip, 7 pairs of pants, 7 pairs of underwear, 1 business suit. Interesting. Power bank. That's something I would actually have. Okay, none of this stuff is Kiro related, but you can see the general vibe of this trip. So I have this list. I would love for this thing to undergo some kind of design transformation. And I would love to really make this look quite a bit nicer. And I could say, I come in here and I can click create new spec. And inside of this spec, I can enter my idea to generate requirement design and tech. So you're not even writing the requirement docs or anything like that. You're just saying, I want, or well, let's even just say revamp plain design into something modern, bold, and clean. Okay, so just a really simple kind of like, this is what we're looking to do. Avoid using libraries or Tailwind. Sorry, Tailwind, nothing against you. Use CSS variables and okay. Use CSS variables. That's good. I can hit enter here and it's going to go off. Kiro's going to start doing its stuff. It's going to start generating these documents. And you can see the first thing it's doing is including the steering documents. And then it's going to start to understand what exactly I want. It's going to then look into the Kiro directory to see if there's existing specs. It's going to look into the specs directory. It's going to start reading some files to kind of understand things. And it's going to start coming up with a requirements document. If you want to follow what it's doing, you can do that with this little follow button, and that's just going to show you as it's writing these things. I largely do watch them as it's going because I want to see what's happening. This feature involves, you can see what it generates here is another markdown document that says, as a user, I want a modern and visually appearing interface so that I can enjoy using the app, blah, blah, blah. Either way, it always starts with a user story, and I find that fascinating. User story, I want a blank, and then the acceptance criteria. And keep in mind, these spec docs, this is like a thing that people use. I'm always working by myself, so I've never truly written any of these for real people. I find this to be really structured, but also I think this works really well. So when the application loads, then the interface shall display a modern, bold, clean design aesthetic. That all sounds great. I do love within this that it says what it should do and what it should not do. And yeah, there's a lot of, for what I asked it to do, this is a lot of acceptance and criteria. But trust me when I say that it is worth it. When they say over engineering mode, this is what they're talking about. They're then creating, like, I want to just throw in some CSS. You could just throw in a base CSS theme. You could copy and paste it, call it a day, and things would largely be looking fine. And by the end of the day, who knows if this thing will even be better looking than doing that. But I will say that if you're asking it to create and work through a feature, you want these detailed requirements. This makes it so much more thorough when it's doing its planning. And now it's creating the design document, which you can follow along as well. And I don't know why it keeps creating this split view. I'm doing something wrong there. Okay, design document. Yes, design will review. Yeah. Use design tokens, base styles, component system. Ooh, showing me some of the primary colors and all that stuff it's creating. I like it. I like these colors, and but this is the point in which it's completed this document. If there was anything in here that I disagreed with, again, you could ask AI to make a second pass at this, or you can just modify this document. It's markdown, right? And to me, that's very effective, being able to come in here and modify this. Since we're YOLOing it a little bit here, I'm going to say this looks fine. We're going to move on to the implementation phase. And what you're going to get is an interface for working in tasks specifically. It's going to generate a bunch of tasks. It's going to generate a bunch of tasks. I keep getting that weird split view when I click follow. And I think it's like showing me a diff here, but I don't know. Collapse all diffs. There we go. No. I don't know why it's showing me a diff. I didn't have that experience. Again, this is a like kind of a preview mode of this editor. So if there's bugs or stuff, I've had this chat window over here not loading before. So there will be dragons, etc. Okay, it creates a task list for you. Create global CSS, implement modern layout in container styling, style the main trips light page or layout page, modern component styling, style the trip detail page, implement packing list item styling, style the notes, text area, and action buttons, micro interactions, implement responsive design, add accessibility and polish enhancements. Look at this detailed list of stuff it's got to do. It even has the requirements here. I can say finalize list because hey, this looks fine to me. Looks good to me, LGTM. It's blabbing over here. It's jabbering about something, but we're not going to care about that. You want to know at this point, which is kind of what I was like. I was like, all right, where do I go to actually run these tasks? And the interface for running these tasks exists within the implementation plan. If you get off of this stuff and you're on like a file and you're like, ooh, how do I get back to all that AI stuff? You can always click on the spec name, and then up top here, mine is really zoomed in, so these look very cluttered, but typically it's just showing the requirements document, the design document, or the task list. So you can just head back to the task list here. And from here, you can say start task. And it's a nice little UI. It's a little text-based UI. And it's going to start working through these tasks. Now, when I say that this is over engineer mode or etc., it's not necessarily going to be the fastest. The larger your code base gets, this is a small code base, this shouldn't be that slow. The larger your code base gets, the more intense some of these can be, where it's having to check a lot of files. And again, it's thorough, so it checks a lot of files. You can also queue tasks. So if I want number 2 to start immediately without necessarily even checking that number 1 was great, I can say start task number 2. It's going to say execution queued. And then in our task list, it's going to show us everything that's queued, and you can delete things accordingly. But for here, yeah, it's creating an app.css file. And then as we go, I typically refresh here, but you'll be able to see the results happen live. It's a little bit different of a workflow. But like I mentioned, because you're creating these specs and it's going through them one by one, it tends to work very nice. I like this quite a bit. I'm going to pause my recording while this task gets wrapped up, and then we can check in on how it did. Okay, so we've made some movement here, but you will notice it has been paused. Now, at this point, it's going to ask you to run a command. And at this point, it wants to make sure that we know that this thing is working. So let me test the implementation by running development server to ensure the CSS variables and styles are working correctly. Now, you can trust this command and accept it, and then that way it will just be able to run that command. Or you can click run and just have it run once. I would recommend just clicking run, or you can reject it entirely. But again, you know, trust is an interesting thing with agents and command line terms. It's, I guess, your own your own discretion there, I suppose. But I'm just going to click run, and it's going to head and run it. And it threw up at a certain specific port, because I do actually have this app running already, and it's working. So you can't just click run task and walk away from your computer. You do need to babysit it for these types of things, but also, if you're like me, I'm curious about what's going on, especially if it's like, if it's writing code for me, which it typically does, write a lot of code, right? I'm curious about what it's actually doing inside of this file, right? When it says it's at this point it's just looking at it, or it's adding the import app.css in this case. I want to know what it's doing, right? If it's doing something dumb, I want to be on top of that, so I can pause this or interrupt it or something. It did create, like I mentioned, I want it to be CSS variable based. You can check it out. Color, primary, active, light, dark, yada, yada, yada. You know what? This isn't necessarily how I would do it. I prefer a different approach. But as far as just getting a color system ready, it's got all the stuff you need in it. And one thing that I have been doing personally is prefixing all of my CSS variables with what the heck they do first. So color, BG, whatever. It makes searching for them very easy. Space, font size, etc. And then when you have autocomplete, it makes really searching for them that much easier too as well. And so I don't mind this when it does that. And I do think largely it's how I would have done it. If you do want a different type of system or flow or whatever, you change that in the requirements or your spec docs or all that stuff. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that I did have to stop the development server because it got hung up on what it was doing. It basically was like, all right, the development server is running, but I'm doing nothing. So I had to come in and manually stop the development server. Again, early product. And then immediately it picked up and recognized that, okay, it said the development server started with no issues. Let's check it out. And then it says all this stuff. Okay, here is the tasks. It has been verified to be completed, as in the task one, task number one, just the first task has been completed, which if you'll remember, if we head over to that spec, you can get there again by heading to your spec task list. You can see that it is just simply creating the global CSS system and base variables. And sometimes you'll see this too, especially when queuing tasks over time. I can't say the word tasks today. What's going on? You will see this too. Sometimes it says error implementing task, especially when you're queuing them. I've noticed this happens, at least right now. I'm sure this will be fixed, right? But in this case, it makes sense to just say retry, and then it's just going to start it. And I've usually have no problems ever since doing that. Okay, so while this is off doing its task, all right, I'm just going to focus on saying that word. While I'm focused on doing that task, I'm going to actually show you some other stuff in here. Now, this one's kind of interesting. It is the agent hooks, which at first I was like, when would I ever use this? What would I use it for? But it is kind of an if this, then that. And in that case, an event occurs, a prompt is sent to the agent, and Kiro makes updates. And so perfect examples would be optimize my code language localization or update my documentation. And I think these are all great use cases, but here's a nice and easy one. Update my README with what scripts are available when package.json scripts have been updated, right? I add a new script, I change a script, should be documented in the README. Yeah, I could do that by hand, right? But just to have an agent go off and do that automatically, and you'll see something that we've seen before. Execution queued. This has been my biggest pain point with working in Kiro, is that anytime you want to do anything, it puts it in one singular main queue, which, I get. But that queue, again, when you're implementing tasks, that can take a long time. You end up like, which thing should I prioritize next? I want to move quick. I want to do this and that, do this and that. And Kiro's like, let me go ahead and calculate every value in the entire world while you can just go sit and wait. So that's my biggest complaint, is that the workflow in Kiro can definitely feel a little over and a little slow because of that. That's the biggest complaint. The little bugginess here and there, man, it's a preview project. I've used enough of these things to know that that is more than expected. I got tolerance for that. And right now, again, it is checking out some edits. It's updating as this completes this task. And you can see it's not like beautiful or anything yet. We got a lot of things to do. It hasn't even touched this stuff until another task or these buttons or anything like that. But it does look significantly better. Now, if I want this to look like a specific thing, like if I have a target what I want the style to be, I want this thing to look like an Evangelion computer or something. I could take one of those images, throw it in there, it accepts that image, and it can accept that when you're like, if we come in here, you can add that to the chat of the already existing spec and say, actually, I need it to look like this Evangelion image, right? They got what? They got the bold oranges and reds and whatever, the lines and the cool shapes, and it looks retro futuristic. And then you just add that to your specs, and it will go off and continue to do that and update all your stuff. So It's very nice. Now, this is looking very Bootstrap, which I asked for modern and bold, and this gave me Bootstrap. It looks like, listen, it doesn't look bad. Let's not say this looks bad. But if I was opening an app like this, which I do 100 times a day, open apps that look like this, I would say, all right, not my definition of bold, but whatever. Works just fine. Ooh, it even added a crossout. I didn't have that in my CSS. It chose to do that as well. Man, this is perfect. If I go back to trips, I think it's just going to do a nice snap. Whoa! Beautiful interface here. Obviously, some of the main things are not my style, but start date, end date, trip name. This looks like a real little interface here. Just did this in one shot, and then even gave these some nice animations here. Beautiful. And again, like I said, it wasn't like fast, but it was accurate and has mostly done a great job. Now, this is saying it's going to run npm dev again to check. I don't need to do that. I can just say reject it. I don't need it to do that. It's already working. We know this. We're checking it out ourselves. npm run check, however, npm run check is a Svelte kit command that will check to make sure there's no CSS errors or accessibility errors, and it will output these things in your terminal. This is a good one. I'm going to trust and accept this because npm run check does not affect our application in any way, just output stuff. And you can see when I click it, it does say it has added the command to our trust list, but it's still waiting for our input. We need to select one of these. So I don't want it to have all npm or npm run. I want to say just npm run check. Go ahead. And then it's been added to our approved things. It's going to run npm run check. It's going to be great. Okay, so it's found a TypeScript error, which do get output. I need to fix the TypeScript errors in the trip detail page. Let me update it to handle proper type handling. Now, this is interesting because I'm going to be honest, this TypeScript error existed before, and it's my fault. And this is a CSS thing, but it's like, let me step in here to do this. You might not like that. I actually kind of don't like that either because listen, bro, I didn't tell you to touch this TypeScript. I know there's an error there. I wrote the error. I am the error. But shit, man, it works. All right, it fixed those TypeScript errors, which I didn't need it to do, but it didn't then run Svelte check, and the output of Svelte check was positive. Therefore, it's ready to move on. Like I said, this can all feel tiring, and maybe it's even felt tiring to you watching it, but the results kind of speak for themselves because I have mentioned a couple of times, and I do say this sincerely, the results have been 10 times more reliable to me than any other platform I've been using because of how detailed everything is and just how right it gets it. And I can understand if you're like a Claude Code person and you are working in a more spec-driven way, that's fine. But having a UI for all these things cannot be overstated. I love having a UI for things, seeing things that are outside of the terminal. Honestly, I don't really want my coding interface to be my terminal. I'm sorry, Vim folks and all those folks. I'd like it to be an independent application or IDE. Okay, so this time the queued task, which was our create hook, did not fail. In fact, it stepped right into it immediately afterwards. Now, there is user input required. Well, not user input required, but you want to check it out. So this says exactly, updates the README with the current list of available NPM scripts. Beautiful. And the event is when a file is saved. Now you can see that the event types are file created, file saved, file deleted, manual trigger. This is great. This kind of automation I live for. I live for this stuff. I'm going to love it. And here are the instructions, and quick glance tells me that these are all good. So does this thing work? I'm going to close this, and you can see this hook exists, right? The hook now exists in our interface. And why am I browsing to this thing? Package.json. Let's go ahead and add a new script, which is comma Scott. And this is just going to be ls, because who cares, right? I'm curious about just how automatic this will be. If we head to our README here, we can scroll down and you can see all this stuff. So far, nothing has happened, right? But there's some action. the interface has picked it up automatically. The hook is clearly working and the hook is running. You can then follow this session. Now, one thing that is interesting about this, you might be wondering, all right, this hook is running. Can I then take one of my tasks that I wanted to do in my task list and start doing that next task? It gets queued. So it gets queued until after this is done. So again, the queue can definitely feel a little weighty. And this is a ghost. It's super light and fluffy. It's cute, but it's a lead ghost. I will tell you that. My computer heats up a massive amount, and it does take a little bit of time on everything, but it's effective. Trade-offs, man. You always got trade-offs, because I can't tell you how many times I've gone back and forth with stupid AI to be like, no, for real though, please, I'm begging you to use Svelte 5 syntax and not mess it up. And you're ruining my life by constantly ruining my syntax. And this is just much faster. I am talking it to more efficiently than that, but sometimes we all get frustrated. Let's check the results of this to see if that worked, because this is a great little feature here. And once again, I'm trying to. I've like gotten. I don't typically use my mouse this much, but I want to click around and show you things in this video, and now I'm like mouse dependent. Okay, let's see this. We got available scripts: development, run and build and deploy, code quality, technology, stack, and then utilities. List directory contents, custom utilities script, npm run Scott. Fine. That's totally fine. This is all great. It's exactly what I wanted it to do. And now I have confidence that anytime I do this, it's going to go off, and it might take a minute or two to do it, but it's going to get it done. And again, if we want to go check in on our given task, we can always click View Changes, and this will update. Or you can come over to here in your chat window, and it's added it to the endless amount of tabs you end up gaining. You can close any of these things out when they're done. Like this thing, the hook, I can close it. Creating hook, I can close it. Execute task number 2, close it, close it, close it. But those things pile up. I'll tell you that real quick. So it's starting to do this, and once again wants to run npm run dev. I'm just going to reject it. Like why? I've already told you to stop doing that. But again, I don't even know what this task is. I just clicked go on it. What a world. Things have become here. Transform the trips list into a modern card-based layout. Implement trip card components, shadows, add trip, yada, yada, yada. So it is, it kind of already did that. So we will see just how much, but I think you get the gist. So we've talked about the specs, we've talked about the agent hooks, but we have not talked about MCP servers. Now, a lot of you may have used MCP in your lives already. MCP is one of those things that I sometimes can get frustrated with when the editor doesn't let me know exactly what's going on with my MCP servers. There's a really great MCP server for documentation called Context 7. And CJ just used this in his video on Claude Code just a couple of days ago. So if you are using that, go check out that video. Or if you aren't using it, you want to understand Claude Code, CJ did a great job going through his first time using Claude Code. I'm going to click Add an MCP server, and I'm just going to paste in the typical config here. This is straight out of their GitHub. I'm going to save it, and it's going to let me know that it's doing something here. It's connecting to the server. I've often found the interfaces for working with MCP servers to be less than desirable. But you can see here, MCP connection closed. So there is an issue here, and you can do a couple things. You can ask Kiro, and we can say, hey, why? Why is this giving me this error with this MCP server that I copied the MCP server configuration directly from the README? Okay, so I wanted to just skip all that. It ended up being an easy fix. I told it that I was using PNPM. It updated my tech docs, so now that everything knows that I'm using PNPM. It updated the command to be PNPX, and then I was getting another error because the Y flag was not something that was valid with PNPMX or PNPMX. Is that whatever? Either way, cancel. I don't know what you're doing right now. Either way, it removed that flag, and now the context 7 is here, and we can use these functions by using the MCP tool. In this case, by clicking on it, it just fetches the up-to-date documentation. I think what I just told it to do is probably not that interesting. So we have MCP, we have agent hooks, we have agent steering, and we have specs. I've been using this with products with several different specs at once, and it has been very, very, very nice. So what are your thoughts? Is this Amazon and you'll never touch it because of that? Or is this not the type of thing you're interested? Do you hate all AI tools? Now, personally, I'm the type of person who thinks you should give things a try. And this one falls into that category, especially because it's in preview mode and it's free to use. There's no commitment here. It's a great time to try it. And who knows? You might like it. Or again, you might just say, I'm never touching the thing because I would never trust a product that Amazon releases. I get that. But hey, in my experience, I really liked it. And in fact, I've been using it nonstop and I'm going to continue using it. It has really turned into a tool that I can trust to write code instead of one that I feel like is constantly fighting me to get what I want out of it. And then I'm having to go to third-party sources to say, what are the best structures for making sure AI gets my stuff right and making a big old directory of files, etc. in my product. It's all in the interface. And as somebody who likes a really good interface, I really like the interface within Kiro. I think the workflow in Kiro is good, I think the interface is good, and I think the features for what we're doing in modern AI really fits well within my day-to-day. So I'm going to keep using it. I really enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Hey, if you like this video or any of the videos on this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and, subscribe to the channel, because every time you do that, it really helps us. And we make new videos. There's new videos every Monday and Wednesday and Friday. And then in between there, we just had a video on Tuesday for Claude Code and this video today on Thursday. So videos are coming out all the time, whether they are coding tutorials, in-depth looks at various technologies, or things that are just for fun. And we even have a great new long series by Chad Whitaker on open source called Open Path. That's really fantastic. You should check it out. It's a different kind of series. So as always, this is Scott with Syntax. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. Even if you just want to say AI sucks, upvotes to the left, etc., whatever, go ahead and do that. Peace.